Good afternoon. It's a great honor to be here with a room full of like-minded professionals who are interested in moving forward the agenda for early childhood. This is my first time in Sarajevo. I've been here only about 24 hours. And I think because it's Valentine's Day, I can say this. I have fallen in love with the city. It's beautiful. So thank you for inviting me, and I'm privileged to be here. I'm going to try and get the conversation moving forward about really what is preschool and how do we move this transition forward. And as our chair introduced earlier today saying, we use terms. Do we really understand them? And how can we unpack them for effective programs? Okay. A little bit of a historical background. If we think about all the babies born in the world, 100 years ago, or for the past 100 years, the issue was that about 1/3 of those babies did not survive. Those children did not live. We come into the 21st century and we find that problem has been improved. We actually are getting better survival rates. Kids are surviving. But there is another problem that is facing us. Of those who are surviving, over 1/3 are not achieving to their full potential. They are not developing to the best they can be. Because, in some ways, as foreshadowed and talked about in the morning panel by Emily, was we are really not creating those adequate environments in those early years to foster that development. And preschool falls into the model of starting to eliminate the red and make it white. And that is why we are taking this conversation forward, because Bosnia has decided to address the current issue facing young children and young children's development. It is this where we've got to change the red to white. These kids have to achieve their potential. So I'm going to take a quiz and ask you 3 questions, because our chairperson said the after lunch session is a bit slow and we feel sleepy, so we're going to have a quiz. We all have paper. We're going to answer 3 questions. You can answer yes, no, I don't know. Your choice. Okay. Question number 1. Are the children in Bosnia entering school with the social, cognitive skills and competencies to achieve? Yes, no, I don't know. Question 2. Are the families and communities ready to help the children make the transition to primary school? Yes? No? I don't know. Last question. Are the primary schools equipped and ready to provide the optimal learning environment? Okay? Have your answers ready. We're going to go through some slides and see where we fall. All right? Okay, so I'm going to talk about what is school readiness, what is this term, why is it important, and how can we ensure a successful and smooth transition. The last part of this, I think, is the most important for the action agenda that you are going to set for preschool. Okay? So what is school readiness? I have to tell you a little story I'm reminded of. Many years ago, when my daughter was young, she was about 5, 6 years of age, and I had traveled abroad for a meeting for a couple of days, and I came back, and she said, "So, Mommy, what was your meeting about?" And I said, "It was about school readiness." And she said, "And you were gone for 4 days?" I said, "Yeah, it's a big topic. School readiness, isn't it?" And she said, "No, Mom." I said, "Really? What is school readiness?" And she said, You've got to know your ABCs and how to read and write. You have to know how to listen to your teacher and follow directions. And you have to know how to play well with your friends and have a good time. That's all school readiness is. So she was surprised that we spent 4 days discussing it. But actually, as we all know, it's actually a very complex construct that we are trying to deal with. I am going to talk about 3 interlinked dimensions of school readiness: ready children, ready families, and ready schools. Okay? But those 3 interlinked dimensions, there is a dynamic process that goes on between them. They are considered ready when they have the competencies and skills to interface with the other dimensions. Okay? They have to interlink together. That's what we're going to talk about. And they operate in this larger cultural policy context that has been alluded to, and we have a policy supporting it. Okay, so let's try and go through each one of these. Ready children. What do we mean when we say our children ready for school? What we're talking about is what children should know and be able to do when they enter school. And I really want you to focus on the word, and they are eager to learn. There is an attitude towards learning, a certain orientation towards learning that comes into it. Okay? We're talking about it in holistic terms. This morning we've talked a lot about holistic development, cognitive, social, physical, moral. And those domains comprise of a lot of behaviors, a lot of skills, ability to follow directions, engaging in learning, literacy, numeracy. So we are talking about this holistic aspect of children being ready for school. The second dimension is ready families. Think about ready families. Here we are talking about parental beliefs and attitudes about school, about learning, about education. What are the values? We are talking about involvement, the degree to which parents are involved with that learning process, with that education. We're talking about creating, stimulating home environments where there's engagement with the children. This whole science about engagement that is promoting development. I think this morning's presentation from France, from Paris, showed us very clearly that when there was a demand for the maternal schools, we saw the government supplying it. And ready families is that. The presentation just before us said, creating public will. What is that? That's ready families. And finally, we're talking about ready schools. What does ready schools mean? There are a few elements of ready schools that the research has shown us are important to ensure that smooth transition into primary school. The first is to create continuity between home and school environments. We have multiple different ethnic groups, we have multiple different languages. How do we ensure that schools welcome and create that smooth transition? How do we bridge this cultural divide? The second is to promote learning for all, and we had an excellent presentation talking about that culture of all inclusion, that special project. And there is sufficient time devoted to learning. I think Deepa's presentation showed us that a lot of the expenses were linked with non-learning related activities. That there is this effective teaching and instruction, and it's a safe, secure environment. Now what I'd like to say is, these 3 elements of ready children, ready families, and ready schools that comprise school readiness is not static. It's dynamic. The transition is dynamic and ongoing. That interface is dynamic and ongoing. And that's what promotes and fosters for successful transitions. That's the paradigm. That's the model that a lot of different bodies of research have told us is effective and efficient. So now that we've defined what is it that we are really thinking about in moving forward this preschool agenda, let's take a minute to think about why it's really important. When the three dimensions of school, family, and children are aligned in a manner that they support and interface each other, that's when we see child outcomes improving. That's when we see children actually learning in the classroom, not just enrolled. Just because you have all the kids in class doesn't mean that they're learning. That's when we see learning. That's when we see achievement. That's when we see reduced dropout, reduced retention, kids going on. You know, all this research that shows the return on investment, it is because we have an alignment here that occurs in a manner that kids learn. But when it is non-aligned, when the school transition piece is not together, kids are elsewhere, families are not involved, they're not thinking, they don't know. Maybe they are unaware. When schools are not ready, maybe they don't have the resources, the environment is not fostering, that's when we start to see a decline in child outcomes. Kids don't learn, we see very high dropout rates, we see retention rates, and we see a decline in not gaining the potential. So this juncture in time is very important for moving forward with an agenda of optimal development. So how can we make this happen? You know, it's not just enough to say, yes, 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 we agree. Of course, everybody agrees kids are good and school's good. Who's not going to agree with that? And we have the research to support it. But then the proof lies in how are we going to make this happen. I want to suggest some options that hopefully we can discuss and think about in terms of operationalizing and implementing a preschool agenda. I'm going to talk about approaches at the children's level, at programmatic level, at policy, and at monitoring. I want to tell you these are not mutually exclusive categories. Okay? It's not like a menu. If I ordered the first course, I can't order the second, or these are different courses. This is a way that you can pick and select options, how they work together, based on what you see as the most effective entry point for moving in to scale up, expand quality preschool. Okay? So these are options that vary from country to country, and what a country might pick to move forward are the combination of approaches. Emily showed us this picture this morning, where we see a whole bunch of neuronal activity occurring before the child is 6 years of age. We see a major amount of activity occurring. For the most part, a lot of has happened before the child walked into primary school. So let's think, what do we have on the ground? We have the integrated child development centers. Is that a time when children are at a situation when they can absorb? Is that a model, an idea to think about? The second important aspect to think about, and I'm thrilled to bits, I'm very happy, that tomorrow there is a whole panel on quality. Because if there's one thing we are learning that the most active ingredient in programs to make a difference is the quality of the program. When we have fever and we take the medicine, there is an active ingredient in that tablet that reduces the fever. It's not a sugar-coated pill. Just the act of eating the tablet is not it. It's the ingredient in that pill that reduces the fever. It's the same thing with programs. And if there's one thing I would say that you would remember from what I've said today, it's quality. Quality is a matter of equity. Quality is the key ingredient to making a difference. And quality is not a luxury. That is an element we really have to focus on. The second part I want to talk about, another programmatic approach I want to talk about, is continuity. What does continuity mean between families? Am I okay for time? Yeah. Okay, between families, preschools, and primary schools. What does continuity mean? The family says to the child, When you move from point A to B, you must walk on your 2 feet. The preschool says to the child, when you move from point A to B, you must walk on your hands. The kid goes to school, and they say, when you move from point A to B, you mustn't walk, you must run. There's not a continuity. This kid doesn't know how to get from A to B. There are so many mixed messages. This continuity or alignment has been shown to be very important. So when you're thinking about the preschool, what is the primary school doing, and how do we create that alignment? Or what needs to be altered in the primary school such that it's aligned with the preschool? It's really important to create that bridge. Next, I want to talk about the policy level. Is that the level we want to start thinking in terms of moving forward? The issue with early childhood is it's quite a complex picture at a policy level. I'm going to try and break it up a little bit. We have 3 age groups, and Emily talked about this morning. Birth to 3, 3 to 6, and 6 to 8. Okay? We have multiple sectors involved. We have health, child protection, social protection, education. We saw Deepa had a really nice figure this morning where she showed us these sectors. We have a lot of actors involved. Government, non-government, private sectors. And we have programs that address just the child, or the mother, or the parent and the child. Single generation, double generation, or just the parent. Okay. Now what happens between the 0 to 3 age? There are many different options available. There are breastfeeding promotion programs, there are health clinics, home visiting, birth registration, cash transfer, adult education, parenting. I mean, there's so much going on. When we think about preschool at this policy level, we're thinking about how can we coordinate these so to get the maximum impact and effectiveness. Often it's not possible to integrate them, though that might be the goal. But there are ways to coordinate them and create convergence around these so that we can move forward this effective agenda for early childhood. The last point I want to make is monitoring. And this would apply to all the different levels I've talked about. It's really important as we move forward with this preschool agenda, with understanding preschool, that we think about how we can keep improving the system. Have you noticed, and we all use Microsoft Office, right? We use Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Have you noticed from when you first started using it till now, we are in version number 10 or 12? What did the company do? Every time they took the model out, they monitored how we were using it, they improved it and came with a new improved version. That's what we have to do. Just because we start off the programs doesn't mean we got it. We have to keep collect information so we keep improving subsequent features of our preschool program. So here we talk about ready children. What is it that you want to learn to improve your programs? How well are children prepared to start and continue school? How is their health and well-being? With respect to family, are we seeing change in parents' knowledge, attitudes, expectations? Where are we causing change to happen so we can improve our programs? Schools, how well are children and families received? How open are the schools? How safe are they? How sensitive are they? To what extent are there child-centered methods in the classroom? Are they environmentally sustainable facilities? These are all different types of questions we should be asking once we start instituting the program and using that data back to improve our early childhood preschool programs. So I want to thank you very much for allowing me to be here, for inviting me. And I'm happy to be on this journey. In fact, I'm honored to be on this journey. And as we move forward to really scaling up preschool programs for children in Bosnia, I'm happy to be on the journey with you. So thank you very much.